Hey guys, it is Melissa, and if you are new here, my name is Melissa Ellen, and I do true crime videos. So welcome back. Here's the deal. We're going to talk about Lori Vallow, and I already did a complete video in January of the complete timeline of everything we knew right up until Lori and Chad were located. This video, I'm going to try, I'm not going to do that typical annoying thing where you say you're not going to redo the entire video, but you do. So I'm really going to try not to repeat information unless I have to say it to make it make sense. But I'm not going to do that. So I encourage you to watch the first video. Quick synopsis, we have two children that are missing, Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow. They are both missing. They are presumed to be at harm or at risk. It is very confusing. Their mother is in jail in Idaho on $1 million bond because she flat out will not say where her children are. She will not say if they're harmed. She will not say if they're missing. She will not say if they're gone. Nothing. She literally won't. And that is the biggest, most confusing thing. And there have been multiple deaths that have happened, including her ex-husband, now her new husband's wife at the time. It's a mess. So it's too much to try to put in. So please, I encourage you to watch that video. And we're going to start off today's video with just jumping right into new information since that last video. We're going to start out with 2018. I just can't remember how much of I said this in the prior video. Joseph Ryan was the third husband of Lori Vallow, and it was rumored that there was a life insurance policy, and it looks like there was, and she did receive that money at the end of 2018, and it's probably what financed her taking off for over a month in that time. So now let's talk about the beginning of 2019. I already told you guys that Charles did file for a divorce for Lori as a result of things that she was saying. She's a translated being. She had an angel of death. It was getting really out of control with the things she was telling him, and he became very concerned. Charles did, in fact, try to have a 72-hour mental health hold put on Lori, but Lori talked herself out of that. It's one of the things that I found in the police report. When Charles went to the police and he was trying to explain what was going on, I think this is something that happens. A police officer meets with someone for maybe 20 minutes, okay? And you're trying to jam-pack a lot of information into that 20 minutes. And sometimes you can get stuck on certain things. According to the officer, Charles seemed to be more concerned with reporting that Lori had taken $35,000 out of their joint bank account than she was about the fact that she wasn't taking care of JJ, had taken off, and all of these things. And I think that was because it was a business account and Charles was actually trying to leave this meeting so we could get to the bank to deal with this. And at the time, this is still in January, he does not have any idea how insane Lori is going to become at all. Like, he knew something isn't right, but it's like, is she just having a moment, or is this really legitimately what's happening? Would you think that was what was happening? See, I think that part of him was trying to figure out, is she trying to plot like a divorce against me? Is she trying to take money? I don't think he really had any idea how the depth of what was going on. So that was January of 2019. And now I said before that he ended up dropping those divorce proceedings in March of 2019. So it's kind of quiet April, May. I'm sure more information will continue to come out. But we have new information in June of 2019. Now, I'm going to link this for you guys all below, and I'm going to put up the pictures for you. But here's the gist of what happened. In June, Charles Vallow ends up finding emails on his home computer. Lori Vallow had emails, and they were all still linked to Charles Vallow's home computer. They lived together. It's in the computer. Like, however this happened, he said that it was still in his computer. And Charles comes across this email account with his name, and he does not recognize the email account. Like, it's not his email account. And he goes in and he finds that there's this email that's written on June 28th to Chad Daybell, Lori Vallow's new husband. This email is like talking about this book deal. And I gotta say, like, if you look at the email, I'm still like, my brain is going in so many different ways. Like, I can't even tell you guys my different thoughts because they're just too crazy. Why? It's about a book deal. The email, you guys are looking at it, it looks totally normal. He's just saying things like, hey, I really want to do this book deal because I need this for my convention tours that I'm doing. It sounds totally normal. Like, hey, come out, let's talk. And Charles is panicked by this. And he ends up sending an email the next day to Lori's other brother. which is Adam Cox, okay? So he sends the email to Adam saying, look, you guys need to take me seriously. Now remember, in January, he tried to have her committed for the 72-hour hold. Apparently, as a result of that, Lori's family turned against him and was like, what are you doing to Lori? Like, what's going on? And they didn't believe him. So he's sending this email trying to get them to look and be like, guys, like something's not right. And every time something happens, she's blaming me and Alex and Brandon. We're going to get to Brandon, okay? Brandon is the ex-husband of Melanie, which is the niece of Lori that we talked about. And at that time, so this is June 29th, and this email goes from Charles Vallow to Adam Cox, and he's like, they're up to something. Like, what is going on? And at this time, he says that he was going to contact Tylee Daybell. We do not know. According to reports, he did confront Lori, and we don't know how she responded. We have no idea what happened because 2 weeks later, Charles was dead. Now, after these letters, I'm assuming this is what happened. So now Charles ends up contacting his realtor and is like, hey, this isn't working out. Apparently, the realtor was a really good friend of his. That realtor had rented them homes before and had even gone to visit them in Hawaii when they had lived there. So he's talking to the realtor and he's telling him like, hey, this isn't working out with Lori. I'm not going to be able to stay at that house. I need to find another house to rent for myself. They had actually made arrangements on the morning of July 11th to meet to go look at new properties. He had been texting him the night before. So apparently, as we know, Charles did show up at the home. Apparently, he still had belongings there, but mostly he was there to pick up JJ that morning. And when he showed up, that is when everything happened. So the report goes that Lori and Charles begin to argue. As a result of this argument, apparently, Charles suddenly got just belligerently angry and started to get angry at Lori. Tylee, 17 years old, apparently went into her room and got a baseball bat. Apparently, Charles then took that bat and struck Alex, the brother of Lori, in the back of the head. And then Alex went into his room, got his gun, came out, and then shot Charles multiple times. Okay, story never made sense. What is even more troublesome, it is absolutely troublesome, and I'm sure this will be completely investigated, is that the police department has made multiple statements about how weird it was, that the car ride back to the police station afterward with the three of them was the weirdest thing they'd ever seen. I get it. I don't get why they ultimately ruled this a self-defense shooting. I am completely shocked. I'm going to put the body cam down for you, okay? We didn't have this before. They're so like casual. The police officer said it was as if they were returning a stolen car to them. That's how casual, and they're just standing. Okay, for example, have you ever been a witness to like a car accident or something? And so you know how like the car accident happens and then everyone's kind of standing there like, oh no. And then within about 10 minutes after everyone's okay, then everyone kind of stands around and they're like talking about it. And then you kind of giggle here and there, be like, oh man, because remember everyone was okay. And then all of a sudden you start to relax and your emotions let go and you might make a giggle here and there. Okay, it's that times 10. Like they are literally like, yeah, I know, yeah. No, I was here, yeah. It's weird. So I will include that down there for you guys to take a look at, because the thing about the body cam footage is that Lori's reactions are just weird, okay? First of all, this wasn't a man that she hated, that she had been divorced from for years, was scared of, had an emotional history that was just horrible, like he had done her bad. So this is someone that like she might be mad at and might be having a disagreement with over money or custody or anything like that. But like this isn't someone she loathed. And when you witnessed him die and she's so just casual and like it's nothing. I don't understand. I do not understand. I know for me, I have, my ex is someone I literally despise, but I would be emotionally wrecked. That would I don't know how somebody could do that. I just don't. It's weird. And just so we're clear, the shooting death investigation of Charles Vallow is being looked into. It is being investigated. It is being looked at. Of course, Alex Cox is the shooter, and we do know that Alex Cox did ultimately pass away, but it is still being looked at because Lori and Tylee were both in that house, and something happened, and we need to know what happened. August of 2019 is the last time that Kay and Larry have spoken to JJ. They have FaceTimed with him. So now we're in September. At the end of August, beginning of September, that's when Tylee, JJ, Lori all moved to Rexburh. They actually end up in a like complex of apartments where it's just in the same area as Alex Cox and Melanie, which is her niece. September is also the last sightings of Tylee and JJ. So the last sighting of Tylee is actually on September 8th of 2019 at Yellowstone National Park. It appears that Alex Cox, Lori Vallow, and JJ and Tylee all went to the National Yellowstone Park on September 8th. There were photos that were recovered from Lori's iCloud account in her iPhone that showed them being there. According to the police at this time, there's no actual evidence that Tylee left the park on that day. So it's confusing. We don't know. The only thing we don't know is that there's not any actual sightings of Tylee after that day. There's none in her phone. It is very possible. And there are some very dark theories about what might have happened to Tylee, and it might have happened at the Yellowstone National Park. There's a couple of videos that I will link for you below of people talking about this area, about different ways that people could be lost and concealed in the Yellowstone Park. It just would take me too long, and there are just really a lot of theories. But yeah, it's very interesting. It's such a big area, and I don't know enough about it to tell you if this is what could have happened, but something very likely could have happened. In the discovery with the court case, there are 2 videos that are being submitted, and it does appear they involve the entrances and exits of the Yellowstone National Park. So that might very well be, we don't know, okay? We just don't know for the public, but there's 2 videos. So one's got to be them going in, and one's probably them coming out, and we're not sure. Maybe Tylee's not seen on the going out, but we don't know yet. In February 22nd of 2020, there was a video released from September 17th of 2019, and that is a video of JJ playing in the courtyard. There was some concerns about this video. It seems like he's running and he's using the word hell, which is not something he's supposed to be using at his age. And the neighbor took a video, okay? They took a video and they just saved it and they ended up sharing it, and it just shows that what kind of state of mind. The grandparents were worried. They said that the way that JJ was running around kind of concerned them that he might have been off of his medication. As is the public, I don't know JJ's normal behavior, so I seem like a little boy running around. One of the things to note, though, is that the neighbors said that Lori told them that they didn't mention anything about JJ having any sort of special needs or watching out for any of his behavior. So that was probably the reason they recorded him, because they thought he was acting odd. His grandparents were worried that it meant he wasn't taking his medication. To them, that meant something. It could have also been that 2 weeks prior, on August 30th, she had actually had JJ's service dog picked up and returned. And according to the email that she had sent the dog trainer, she said that she is returning his dog due to changes in family circumstances. And then we get to September 23rd, which is the last day that JJ is actually seen. And then she unenrolled him from school the next day. What happens over the next week is completely a mystery. But on October 1st, she is alone and she goes to a storage facility and rents a 10 by 10 storage unit for $53 a month. On October 1st, she went by herself and rented this facility. This storage unit has a lot, okay? Now we're going to get into how this connects to the attempted shooting of Brandon Bordeaux. Now, Brandon Bordeaux is the ex-husband of Melanie. Melanie is the niece of Lori. Melanie appears, okay, to be under the care, in fact, it's referenced as being under the care, was under the care of Lori and Chad and being guided and encouraged to leave her husband because he had been possessed by a dark spirit. And yeah, it's really weird. Possessed by a dark spirit, and something needed to happen to him in order for the world to move on or something. I get really confused. Let me be very clear. I want to say this. I truly, truly believe in people finding beliefs and thoughts and ways of life that suit them. And I believe you can believe anything you want in the entire world, and it is okay, and it is totally healthy. I might 100% disagree with you, but I'm okay with that, and I wholeheartedly encourage it. And I know that a lot of people in this world with the status of mental health are struggling, and they need to find something, and they're searching, and they're yearning, and they want more. Sorry, I don't mean to go on a tangent, but I'm not going to say this is a cult. Well, Lori and Chad are a cult, but like their ideas and their beliefs and their wanting and yearning to find more in the world and believing, y'all, there are people who believe in worse, okay? So like, do I believe in it? No. Do I think they're crazy? Maybe. But like, that's me being judgy. It's not my business. So let's just get that out of the way. What Chad and Lori are doing and like these beliefs, nope, they're crazy. This is October 2nd. All right. In the morning, Brandon is driving home from the gym and somebody shoots at him and he recognizes that it is Charles Vallow's Jeep, okay? Charles Vallow is dead, so it has to be somebody in Lori Vallow's family is driving this Jeep. He assumes it was Alex, okay? Also on that day, there is video surveillance of Lori and a man going into a storage unit. The video has since been enhanced. They thought it was Alex, and it's Chad going into the storage unit. And you see that Chad lifts a big tire, a large tire, up out of the back of this blue car, okay? This is Lori's blue Nissan Rogue, okay? So you've got the back hatch open. He lifts out this tire, and he sets it on the ground, and he rolls it into the storage unit. He then goes back to the back of it, and they lift out a third row seat, and they take it and they put it into the storage unit as well. As they are walking out, you can tell that it's obviously Chad because he pats Lori right on the bottom, okay? I need you to know that you already know from the prior video that Tammy is Chad's wife, okay? Tammy was alive at this time. Vallow Daybell passed away on October 19th, and this is October 2nd. Now, the next day on October 3rd, it shows Lori and what now appears to be Alex Cox. It's a taller man. He walks different. He moves different. And they're interacting differently. And now he walks into the storage unit, picks up the tire and carries it out, goes back in, picks up the third row himself, and carries it out. I think it's really obvious. You can look at the video once it's been enhanced. Like, there's not a lot of argument. It was Chad on day one putting the tire in the third row in there, and then it was Alex on day two removing it out. Why is this important? And this was brought up by East Idaho News. I am going to link the crud out of their sources below. They've done a great job of keeping it up, as well as Justin Lum from the Fox 10 News there, and I will include his Twitter from you. So a couple things to know about this storage unit. The storage unit came up when the credit card payment in January declined. That's when the self-storage unit decided to notify the police department. Alex Cox appears to visit the storage unit alone many times between October 6th and October 26th. And then on October 28th, it appears to be Alex and Chad alone. And they go there and they move in some bikes. And then nobody visits the unit for an entire month until November 24th, when you see Lori and Chad visit. They're there for a few minutes. They dropped off a box and a tote, and they left those items there, and they did not return. Police showed up at their house 2 days later. They did not go back to that storage unit to pick anything up. They vacated town. So here's what you need to know. Again, talking about East Idaho News, they pointed this out. This is really important. So you know that Jeep that would have been driven by Alex to shoot at Brandon? It's one of those Jeeps that has that tire on the back. So what he theorized is that they took that tire off and maybe removed the third row so you can roll the window down the back. Because if Alex had shot out the back window at Brandon, then you would need the tire removed in order to put the window down. And then there's the theory, well then, was he driving? Maybe they took the third row out so he could lay in the back. I'm not really sure. The question is, was someone else driving? And we know that it could not have been Chad Daybell, and it could not have been Lori Vallow. And I still recall her Lori Vallow. I know it's Lori Daybell now, but I got to keep my story straight. So Chad and Lori are on video at the storage unit on that day, so it couldn't have been. And the drive between Garibaldi, Arizona and Rexburh, Idaho is like 14 hours. So it couldn't have been either one of them driving. So then the question was, maybe it's Melanie, which is the ex-wife of Brandon. So was Melanie driving the car so Alex could shoot? I don't really know. I think he could have just driven, had the window down, and just shot. And he put the window down first so that he didn't have to worry about shooting it. I'm not sure. And then a couple weeks later, don't forget, somebody shot at Vallow Daybell in her driveway, but nothing happened either. The gun didn't go off. We have no idea what happened there. And then she posted about it online, and then she ultimately passed away of natural causes on October 19th. But prior to that, here's what we just found out. This is brand new information. October 2nd, okay? So Lori has now moved to Rexburh. She's there in Rexburh. She's obviously hanging out with Chad, going to the storage unit. Brandon's been shot at. Tammy's been shot at. She's hanging out. Her kids are now completely not in the picture. They've disappeared. Nobody knows where they are. And on October 2nd, this woman buys a wedding ring. We know what her wedding ring looks like because we actually have the photos. We're going to get to that in a minute. She actually married Chad Daybell on November 5th. But the ring, she bought the ring on October 2nd. The news actually obtained this photo. And you can see that when she bought the ring on October 2nd, she actually used Charles Vallow's Amazon account and his credit card and just shipped it right to her house. I know you want to know. You're like, wait, I thought they had money. She did. She had money. Why'd she buy a $35 ring? Well, apparently malachite it has healing properties. So it's a stone, it's of importance, and that's the stone that she decided she needed to be her wedding ring. For $35 from Amazon, 2 weeks before her husband-to-be's wife passes away of natural causes. It is also reported in the search history on that same computer that someone was searching for wedding dresses the very next day on October 3rd. So now on October 19th, Tammy Daybell does pass away. And as of March 25th of 2020, the Sheriff Humphreys of the Fremont County says that they do not have any autopsy report at this time. And he also wanted to say that in regards to reports that the family refused an autopsy, so that's not exactly the way that it works. Yes, of course, people can make the request known, but ultimately it's up to the coroner. And if the coroner at any time suspected anything, it's always up to the coroner to make that final decision of whether or not an autopsy will or will not happen. And in this case, they did not know anything prior. And by all accounts, it just completely appeared that Tammy had passed away of natural causes. Now, of course, since everything has come to light, they have exhumed her body. Now, there was also a statement from the father of Tammy. He wanted the public to know that, yes, they are 100% cooperating. They are learning this information as we are. And I believe that in the beginning, they were like, what are you talking about? You guys are crazy. You guys are making this. No, stop. They're hurting, they're grieving. And Chad Daybell to them was not someone that they'd ever suspected this kind of behavior from. So they were in shock and they were defending their family. And now I don't think that they're not defending or they are defending. They're just kind of like, give us a minute. They're gathering this information and they're waiting for information to come to them. It was also confirmed, though, that Chad Daybell did receive $430,000 in life insurance from the passing of Tammy Daybell. And just a couple weeks later, on November 5th, Chad Daybell married Lori Vallow in a beach ceremony, laughing, hanging out. It is reported that Chad told his parents that Lori was an empty nester. She didn't have any minor children. They were just living it up, having this amazing time on the beach, spending thousands of dollars, just laughing and carrying on and dancing, and he's playing the ukulele. Like, life is just wonderful. Her children are missing, and he knows they're missing. He put their bikes into the storage unit. I just want you to start letting it sink in. Start letting it sink in. If there was any chance in the world that we thought Chad Daybell wasn't involved, he's involved. The end of that month is when police did a welfare check at the residence in Rexburh, okay? So when they come to the house in Rexburh, apparently now she's living with Chad. There was an argument between her and Alex out like in the middle of the street at the apartment complex, and then she ended up moving out. Apparently they make up later, obviously. So police do that welfare check at the end of November at the address in Rexburh, and that's when Chad tells them at first, like, he barely knows Lori, but then eventually, like, they're pressing, and then he didn't have her phone number, and then Alex has it. Like, that's a whole mess right there. Like, Chad was trying not to talk to police from the second they walked up. At that time, eventually, Lori tells them that her children are with a friend by the name of Melanie Gibbs, and not Melanie, her cousin, with another girl by the name of Melanie that they had done podcasts with, and they contact her, and she said, not only have I not seen those children in 7 months, she said that both Chad and Lori asked her to lie about the whereabouts of the children. So they take off and they can't find the children. It all starts coming out into the news around the end of December. And on January 16th, the state filed an order under the Child Protection Act, the state of Idaho, stating that she had to bring the children back and present them and This is where it got a little tricky because in the wording, it actually says that she's to present them and turn them over to the state of Idaho Health and Welfare Department, and then they would decide a custody arrangement for the children. So I do get, because it gave us all hope, okay? Because when Lori was arraigned, one of her lawyers made a comment that like, hey, you guys need to understand, this isn't a request to show us a photo and show that your child's safe. Like, this is a request that says, bring your children and give them to us. I was like, oh, maybe. Like, I just had this like hope that maybe they were like these people that believed in like the government can't tell me what to do. And so if I want to take my child and put them somewhere, then I'm allowed to do that. So I was kind of like, I don't want that to be true, but like maybe that's what they were doing. And everyone started to hope that like, oh, they're just proving that they don't have to pull their children forward because the state's going to take them. But that's not it. It's not what happened. Because let's be very clear. Do a couple Google searches, look at a couple Facebook groups. There are really big organizations that believe in living an off-the-grid type of lifestyle. They're online though, but they're off the grid. But you know what I mean? Like, I'm seriously, there really are. And so if Lori was asserting that kind of a defense, and it were true, believe me, there is a lot of people who would come forward to help her and support her if that were true. But it's not. She's not trying to take her kids off grid. They're not here. So on January 25th, they served Lori with paperwork, and she was in Hawaii. So she had taken off to Hawaii. So they find her there in Hawaii, and they serve her with the paperwork. And they actually took her and they questioned her and chat in separate cars. And then they actually seized the rental vehicle that they were driving. And so they had to make a little small walk back to the resort that they were staying in. Yeah, they're at a resort. They've been taking flights. They've been going to the beach. They're living their best life in Hawaii. And so when they're making this small walk, a reporter asked them, hey, where are your kids? Literally, like, could you just answer the question? Where are your children? Are you worried? We're worried. There's an entire nation worried about your children. And she says, that's great. The reporter has to fight himself because he's like, that's great. Like, he gets so angry, and I don't blame him. Like, what do you mean that's great? Where are your children? Why don't you care? And she's just like, I don't have to answer you. I don't have to. And she doesn't. Now, some of the information we learned as a part of there was the arraignment, there was a couple hearings when she was in Hawaii. They were trying to reduce her bail. They were talking about extradition. They were talking about verification of identity, like all of these things that get included. And, you know, of course, to the whole general public, we really thought that she was going to be like ripped in by her hair, held up and looked at her like, answer, where are your kids? I wish that the world worked that way, and it doesn't. But no, we just all got to sit there and stare at this smug woman who's just like, I'm not answering you. The things we found out is that Lori and Chad were claiming that were establishing permanent residency in Hawaii, which is what they were trying to do. They literally were like, yeah, no, we live in Hawaii now. Yeah, sorry, we live here. We weren't running. We're not a flight risk. Like, we just live here now. And she had lived there before, but like were reported that your kids were missing, and then you suddenly got new residency. Her attorney, which was in Hawaii, was Craig DaCosta, and he had said that, yeah, she had planned the move prior, and just gave a lot of like, they were fighting on the bail because the bail was set at $5 million, and they were saying that in the state of Hawaii, that these charges don't meet the burden of a $5 million bail. And the judge there was like, yeah, well, it's up to my discretion, and it's $5 million. So eventually, Lori decided to quit fighting with Hawaii and go ahead and be allowed to extradite back to Idaho. But before we get to her even being arrested, because that hadn't even happened yet. So a lot of things happened. So she served on January 25th. On January 31st, the Woodcocks, which are the grandparents of J.J. Vallow, actually went to court and petitioned for guardianship. So let's cover that really quick. As I explained before, Kay Woodcock is the sister of Charles Vallow. Her husband is Larry Woodcock. So Kay's husband, Larry. Larry has a niece. That niece had a baby. That's JJ. At the time, that niece was unable to care for the child. I don't even want to go any further into that. And the best thing that could happen at the time, considering the circumstance of those parents that were unable to care for JJ was handed over to Larry and Kay. Larry and Kay cared for him for about 10 months. At that time, they realized that at their age that it wasn't a good situation for them to continue to care for JJ long term. That is when Charles and Lori adopted JJ. Now, when they adopted them, it has been well stated by many people, including the biological mother, that Lori seemed to be an amazing mother, loved JJ, took care of him, and there weren't any concerns. Obviously, that's changed for everyone. Now, there is a Facebook group. I believe it's called Prayers for JJ. I was in it, but I think I got kicked out for making a video. I don't know. I honestly don't know. Sometimes it just happens. Like after I make a video, I just get kicked out of groups, but it's fine. So in there, I did see that there were several posts from the mother that she has cleaned up her life and she would have liked to have been involved in JJ's life. That's neither here nor there. A lot of people have asked why she didn't go petition for custody. Obviously, that's going to cause an issue with her trying to regain custody because it's not just custody. When an adoption happens, that's full rights. Like it's as if like the whole birth certificate has changed. She is now technically just a person. She's not his mother anymore in the law. I hope that makes sense. So I think that the best thing that could happen is what has happened, which is Larry and Kay are petitioning to get custody of JJ when he's found, praying that he's found. Okay, so that's what they're doing, and that addresses that situation. So they filed for guardianship on January 31st. On February 10th, it was reported that Tylee's phone was found. Now, I am still trying to sort this out, how it was found with Lori, when it was found with Lori, because she was not arrested yet. I'm very confused, and if you have the information, link it for me below, because I can't actually find it. But it is reported that Tylee's phone was found, and it was with Lori, which answers all the questions about those text messages that were sent back in October. And then on February 11th, the photos from Chad and Lori's wedding were released. And this is the wedding that took place November 5th, 3 weeks after his wife had passed away, and just a couple months after her husband had been killed by her brother. The following day, on February 12th, Larry and Kay did go to court. Now, this process of guardianship is a very long process. So when they went in there, ultimately, it just got kind of scheduled, and they went over the process of what would happen next. February 18th, photos were posted of Lori and Chad flying around Hawaii. They're getting a rental car. They're just having like a good time, like hanging out in Hawaii on their honeymoon. On February 21st, this is when we got more of those court documents. And this is when we found out that in September 19th, that Lori had actually hired a sitter for JJ. And that sitter was told when she was hired on September 19th that this would be like a long-term job. And she watched JJ that day. But then when she contacted Lori a couple days later on the 24th, because apparently she was waiting a couple days to be like, okay, hey, like when am I working? That Lori told her that JJ had actually went to stay out of town for a couple months with the grandparents and that she would talk to her later. And then she never got a hold of the sitter again. Something happened in that time period right there, like right in those couple of days is when something happened with the kids. Now, February 20th is when Lori was actually arrested, okay? And when we got the court records the next day. But she's arrested on 2 felony counts of desertion and non-support of dependent children. She was also arrested for resisting and obstructing officers and for criminal solicitation to commit a crime. And what was that crime? That was when we found out that she had actually contacted the Melanie in Arizona and asked her to lie and say that Tylee and JJ were with her. So that was actually a criminal act. You were asking someone to lie to the police on your behalf, and she was charged with that. At that time was when her bail was set at $5 million. Okay, February 24th. So we're going to get into Brandon and Melanie again. One thing I want to say that's very clear. These two are in a horrible custody battle, and they are not afraid to throw knives at each other. Like, they're cutthroat. There's a lot going on. So you have to... It's not that I don't believe a lot of this information. It's just that as things are getting thrown, it does start to feel like this is a lot of throwing shade at each other. Melanie filed in court against Brandon for custody of the children. We know that she was arrested once or twice for going to his parents' house, banging loudly, causing a scene, trying to get her children. But we also know from the court records that she bailed and left her children, okay? So what's going on between them is Brandon seems to think that Lori is controlling what's going on with Melanie and talked her into abandoning her husband and abandoning her children and taking off to go start this new life. She divorces her husband and then a couple weeks later marries Ian Pulowski. He made a lot of claims against her at that time. He was saying that she was in a cult, that she was involved in the attempted murder on him. Like, it was bad. Now, Melanie did respond, and we'll talk about that in a second. February 26th, Lori waived her rights to be extradited back to Idaho. She tried to get her bail reduced again. That was a negative, and so she agreed. I think that's when she decided, like, I'm done fighting with Hawaii. I'm going to go back to Idaho. On February 27th, we actually heard from Charles Vallow's son, Steve, and he said Lori didn't even tell him at first. And then eventually she texts them and tells them that their father's dead. They're trying to get information, and she's just like kind of blowing them off for days. Finally, he's like, you know what? If you're not going to tell us anything, can you just send me my dad's watches? Now, I saw people say online, like, well, that's petty. All they wanted is their dad's watches. As he explained, their dad had a lot of stuff, a lot of money. That's not what they were concerned about. They asked for something that was of sentimental value to them. Charles was an avid watch collector, and he had a lot of great watches, and they wanted them. They wanted to have them to remember him. And she said okay, and then eventually he got a box that had two basic watches you would get from a drugstore, like nothing watches, not his father's watches. Now on February 28th is when Melanie did appear in court to deny the charges against Brandon. She says that he's basically a womanizer, that he's got a bunch of money and he's addicted to porn and he's a bad person and that he's making all of this up. But you were married to him and you loved him. Tell me what's not right. I don't care about any of that. What I want to know is any of this correct? Now, February 29th, Chad went ahead and returned to Idaho to wait for Lori to return. Now, on March 2nd, there's an interview with the news reporter there. I have tried my hardest to find the part where he says the kids are safe. I saw it in every single news line. I have watched every video I could find, and I have a feeling that's going to be one of those moments where you guys are going to leave me a comment. It's going to be so easy. So, apparently, he told the news reporter the kids are safe. But, I watched the video, and he says, I can't say anything right now. We have to wait for the legal process. Okay, thank you. But apparently, it's reported that during that time, he also said the kids are safe. It is also reported by a neighbor that by the name of Sharon Olson, who lived in Hawaii, that before he left Idaho, that she had asked him, is Lori okay? And he said, yeah. And she's like, are your kids okay? And he's like, yeah. But that's a very open question because she said, are your kids okay? And his kids are the kids he had with Vallow Daybell. He has his own set of children. So I'm like, which children were you talking about? Because those aren't your kids. Obviously, they're not. You don't care about them. So March 6th, they are now back in Idaho. And this is going to be the videos where you're seeing Lori in the prison jumpsuit with the curly hair, with the red lipstick, looking all smug. There's so many great memes. I shouldn't laugh about things like that, huh? She does appear in court. Now, the judge that's presiding over that is also the judge that is presiding over the guardianship. And we're going to talk about that in a second. Now, he did reduce her bail down to $1 million. A lot of people were really upset by that. But at the end of the day, whether or not we want it for the bad people, bail is a right, and the judicial system has to apply bail that gives everyone an equal opportunity to defend themselves. For the off chance that they are actually not guilty, they need an opportunity outside of a jail cell to put their case together. So the court does want to give people an opportunity to have bail. I don't want her to have bail. I don't agree. I don't know why it's even an option. She's a flight risk with 2 missing children. Remand. Chad Daybell was in court that day, so were Larry and Kay Woodcock. She pled not guilty on all of the charges that were against her. And that was including, there was also a charge for false reporting to the police on November 26th about the whereabouts of her kids. And then a charge January 31st when she willfully disobeyed the court order, which said to bring her children forward. Now, on March 11th, the judge that was assigned, they did put in a request to have him removed. Here's the deal. In the state of Idaho, they have something called a criminal rule 25, which allows for you to have the option to remove a judge from your case one time. Great law, actually. It's got to be annoying though. Can you imagine they get like going and then they're like, oh, I want a new judge because this one doesn't like me. But honestly, it is a good idea for those that aren't clicking with a judge. But in this case, it said that the judge actually gave a reason and said that he's handling the guardianship case. And so he doesn't need to be assigned to both, as that could be a conflict of interest. Which makes me wonder, since he gave a reason, does she still have the criminal 25 rule? Can she still make a request? Actually, I'm curious. Do you guys know? And then on March 18th, 2 of her lawyers stepped down. Now, that was Brian Wedd and Edwina Elcox, and they stepped down. Now, they did not give a reason why. You do not have to give a reason why in order to step down as an attorney. It can be for lack of payment. It could be because your client isn't signing paperwork. Could be because you don't like your client. It could be because your client is lying to you, won't work with you, won't give you information. It's kind of curious. A lot of people are like, why would they leave a high profile case? This is obviously getting their name in the paper. But there are some attorneys that don't want that. There are some attorneys that aren't financially in a situation where they can do that. Can you just take a year off of work? No pay. So it's kind of curious. We don't know why. Will she get more attorneys? Nobody really knows, but they have stepped down. And so the only attorney she has, I believe, is Mr. Means. I'll put him up for you. March 24th. So we said that Melanie Bordeaux filed against Brandon, and then Brandon filed against her, and then she filed a response against him. There's all these different things there. Since he made an allegation involving the shooting, attempted murder on him, then she filed that he was making false allegations, so then he's also responding to that, a bunch of legal paperwork. But in these documents, Brandon is using information that he got from a police report from December 2nd involving Melanie's new husband, Ian. All right, here's how this story goes. Melanie gets married to Ian. She meets Ian. They literally get married. He had just divorced his wife like 8 months prior, okay? Ian meets Melanie. They hit things off, and within 4 days, they're like off to get married, okay? According to Ian, he was in search. He was in search of someone spiritual. What I said at the beginning, where some people are really searching for something in their life, it appears that Ian at this time, that's what he was doing, okay? He was looking for more. And he meets Melanie, and she starts talking about spiritual thoughts and beliefs and being more open to different things, okay? And he says at first he's very intrigued by these thoughts. And he thought, okay. As they were together a little bit longer, he starts to be like, okay, it's not really clicking for me. I don't really understand. What are we doing? Why are we talking about transporting? Okay. So what had happened is that the wife that he had divorced eventually finds out who Melanie is and gets a hold of him and is like, no, like something's up. We're going to the police. She got a hold of Brandon and found out about the attempted shooting, about her, just everything that was going on with all of them. So Ian went down to the police department. He sits down with the police and an FBI agent, and he tells them what he's worried about. He said that Melanie had told him that she was worried about what might have happened to Brandon. That back in July, Lori and Chad had told her that Brandon was possessed by a dark spirit or something like that, and that something needed to happen or was gonna happen to him so that he could move forward. Now, according to Melanie, she didn't want her husband to die, but she thought that this meant like he was going to die like of natural causes, like normal. And that now, in light of everything, she was worried that Lori might have had Alex do something to Brandon, and that she felt that Alex would do that. That Alex wouldn't shoot someone, but he would shoot someone for the Lord. That if it was told to him that it was part of the Lord's plan and that he needed to, that he would do it for those reasons, that he did not question God, he did not question the Lord, he did what he needed to do or was told that he needed to do. So as a result of this, he ends up agreeing to a recording device to go back. So he hasn't told Melanie that he went to the police. He actually went with his ex-wife, Natalie. So he went down there, he talks to the police, and he's like, yeah, I'm actually worried now too, because he can't ignore this. If he ignores this, Natalie's going to take his kids and run. So Ian is like, okay, yeah, I'll go to the police department. I'll talk to them. I'll tell them these things that Melanie's been telling me and figure out what's going on. But after he went down there, eventually he backtracks. He's like, I talked to Melanie and I think I might have sent the police on a wild goose chase. This might not be what I thought it was. He basically is now saying that Brandon is setting up Melanie, that this is a custody battle, that he took her children, blah, blah. But then he's also says that Melanie is in fear and that she only knows what ifs. Like, she doesn't know if any of this is true. He basically tries to make it look like Melanie only kind of guesses what she knows and that she doesn't actually know, and that she was a pawn in their big whole scheme. So that's the position where they're trying to go. Ian is saying that he didn't know what was going on. And as soon as he knew what was going on, he went to police. But then after he went to the police, now he doesn't really believe them, and that Melanie might be telling the truth. And then it gets a little weirder because remember in my other video, we talked about translated beings, and there's only 50 of them in the world, and Chad Daybell happens to be one of them. Ian, who I'm reading everything Ian's writing, and he's explaining these things, and he's making a lot of sense to me. But then he makes a comment, how funny that two of the detectives on this case happen to be two of Cain's 50 of Cain, apparently there's 50 beings. Chad's one, and these two detectives are one, and this came from Ian. So now I'm like, oh great, Ian drank Melanie's Kool-Aid. So we are getting information from Ian and Melanie, but it's really hard to tell who's telling the truth at all. I have no idea. I'm still so I just watched some video from some guy. I'm not linking it, by the way, because it was so crude and disgusting. But he believes that like Tammy and Alex and all of them that have passed away, that they all faked their deaths. As it sits right now, Lori is in jail on $1 million bond. And she was given that bond weeks ago. And people want to know why she isn't bailed out. First of all, if she were to do a cash bail, she would need the full $1 million. They don't have that kind of $1 million. From my understanding, Chad got like $430,000, and they have already spent a gargantuan amount of that money, lawyers running around and everything. So they don't have $1 million. There are two large bail bondsmen in that area. There was an interview, I believe with both of them, but the one I'm looking at right now was A+ bail bondsman. And she said they believe in bail. They really do believe in bail. So despite public beliefs and everything, they were willing to go down there and work with Lori and talk to her. They went down and they sat with her. And the way that the jail works is you are like right next to each other. You are face to face. And they were willing to work with Lori as long as she would tell them where the children were. And their reasoning being is like, look, if we bail you out, then either you are going to run and hide because you harmed your children and you don't want anyone to know what you did, or you're going to go find those children and run off with them to hide them. Either way, you're not going to show up for court. And as a bail bondsman, that's their money. Like, that's their livelihood. That's a lot of money for them. Can you imagine, like, hey, I'm just going to give Lori Vallow $1 million. Hope she shows up for court. Like, there's a lot. And even if they were to write it, there's so many assets that they would have to do the paperwork on. It takes this long. But at the end of the day, Lori was unwilling to give them any information, and they were unwilling to write her bond. It just comes down to the fact that they have to be secure that she's not going to take off. I said this before because when she was arraigned, there was a point where an attorney said that the problem with the order is that you're not requesting that she bring her or prove that her children are alive and okay. You're asking her to turn them over to the state. So I really kept waiting. I kept waiting. Chad's out running around. He hasn't been arrested for anything. He's got a little bit of money at least. He could be talking to people. He could be getting these attorneys, these lawyers. If the problem is that she didn't want to give her children over, or it was like one of those beliefs that like, no, you can't tell me what to do with my kids. By now, they would have had enough support. You won't even answer if they're okay. So what we have left to figure out is for sure, when was Tylee last seen? Okay, was she seen after September 8th? If she was not seen after September 8th, then did something happen to her at Yellowstone National Park? JJ, he was seen on the 23rd of September, and she took him out of school on the 24th. Nobody knows if he was ever seen again. Why separately? Well, how I would imagine it would have to be Tylee would have to be gone first, because if JJ was gone, Tylee would question, is there a chance that this is the one possibility that Tylee has JJ somewhere? And everyone says, well, Tylee's almost 18. Like, if she was being held, wouldn't she say something? Not necessarily. And here's the only thing that concerns me. The video, the body cam footage after Charles Vallow is shot. Tylee it's hard for me to, she's a minor. It's hard for me to say anything, okay? It's really, 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 really hard to say. And I'm not saying anything bad. And I'm not saying she's like malicious or anything. Like, I can't. She's a minor. It's awkward. And I don't know. But it seemed like she might have been really, really willing to go along with her mother. So maybe Tylee really believes in being able to do whatever they want, and she doesn't want her mom to get in any more trouble. And her mom has convinced her that by staying hidden, that's what's the best thing to do. Our only hope is that Tylee believes in her mom. Like, maybe her mom and Chad have convinced her of these things, and that they really have keeping Tylee hidden, and that they're keeping her off social media, so maybe she doesn't know what's going on. I don't know. It breaks my heart. I wish we knew more. This is an update up until March 27th. I'll probably be back for another one with you guys. So I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for being here. I want to do another quick video for you guys. Do you guys want to hear about Martha McKay? Crazy story. Her mother, so she's in her 60s. Martha McKay is in her 60s. And her mother was murdered almost 30 years ago. So she was like in her mid 30s. Okay, so she's living out of state. Her mother's in her 70s. And her mother and her cousin are murdered at this big house. It's called the Snowden House. I'll show a picture of it. So they're murdered back in 1996, I think it was. And it ends up being a 16-year-old guy. He worked on their property. Apparently they walked in on him and he's robbing it, and he decides to kill them. So this woman and her nephew, who was like a singer, they are murdered. And then the guy burns the house. What's weird is that the house had been burned down a month prior. These are like houses near each other. So anyways, they are murdered, and the guy goes to prison, and he's sentenced to like however many years. Like, it must have been 25 to life, 15 to life, whatever it was, because he was tried as an adult. So Martha, the daughter of the woman that was killed, Sally, Martha ends up befriending him because they kind of wanted to be nice to him, be kind to him, because he was like, they knew him, they knew his family, and he was a young kid when it happened, and like they wanted leniency for him. And so they fight for leniency for him, and she befriends him while he's in prison, while he's going through parole, and then after. So he's paroled in 2018. And do you know what the guy did on Wednesday? He went back to the house and killed Martha. I don't know. I literally was digging all last night. Like, I couldn't stop looking. I want to know more. I saw that another YouTuber is doing a live tonight, and I'm probably going to tune in because I'm just totally curious. Like, what the world is going on? And then apparently the police arrived because there was an alarm going off. So the police arrive, and he like runs across the property, jumps in his car, and then jumps out of his car, and then jumps in a lake and drowns. She befriended him. She helped him get out. I want to know more. I feel so horrible. Anyways, I was thinking about throwing in another video for you guys on that. It'd be a short one because I don't know a lot. So let me know what you guys think. You want another video? Other than that, I will be back again next Thursday for you guys with a regular video. So I thank you guys so much for tuning in. I say this at the end of every one of my videos. No matter what, hug your babies, hug your lives. It always sounds like I'm saying lives, huh? Hug your babies, hug your loves. Life is precious. Enjoy every minute of every day. I appreciate you guys. I love you, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.